Hello. In this video, I'm going to attempt to predict the short-term trajectory of drone warfare and some of the technologies around it. It's just for fun. The start of this is that lately Russia's been fielding FPV suicide drones, which are controlled using a fiber optic cable instead of the traditional electromagnetic stuff uh, controlled by the pilot. This is bad for Ukraine because it means that the traditional jammers, which would usually just jam the signal, causing the drone to just tumble out of the sky instead of being able to hit the vehicle, the usual jammers don't work because there is no signal to jam. And that's a problem. Of course, both sides have these. I think this photo here is actually a picture of a Ukrainian prototype, and then the one below is claims to be a captured Russian suicide drone. But the point is that right now these things are difficult to counter, so somebody's going to have to come up with something. And things already exist. Like, for example, right, there's, of course, guns. Um, you can use guns to shoot them down, especially things like automatic guns, guns which will aim by themselves. You can see here that this is the EMBT ADT concept that was presented at a European arms show in 2024. You can see that on the cannon, it has the usual cannon on top, but also there is a small caliber gun. They mentioned that they can auto target drones and blast them, so that's always nice. But the other thing the thing that I want to talk about, the other way to deal with it is EMP. EMP, electromagnetic pulse. Obviously, there's kind of overlap with jamming, but the point is we're talking about EMPs that are powerful enough to just fry the electronics in the drone. The way an EMP does this is with a strong enough electromagnetic pulse, it'll induce current and voltage spikes in exposed wiring. When I say exposed, I mean exposed to the pulse, right? The pulse can pass through certain things like plastic. Anyway, and then this will damage the components. It'll cause things to heat up, cause things to break inside the tiny microchips controlling things. This can of course be dealt with via hardening. Like, you could, but it is difficult. Here, I mean, the traditional EMP burst that people think of when they hear it is this, right? The result of a nuclear detonation high in the sky. This is not really directed. It goes in all cardinal directions from the blast. We don't want weapons like this. Ideally, what we want is something that you can just put on top of any old truck, right? You just stick one on top of your truck, and then it blasts drones. Much like we right now stick jammers on top of trucks to protect them, at least protect them from anything that isn't fiber optic. I guess technically a nuke is directed because the from the detonation it's actually directed downward mostly. The electromagnetic pulse that actually damages things, the strongest one. That's just because of the way the gamma radiation interacts with air and then electrons go downward and stuff. But anyway, for all intents and purposes, it is not directed. Um, so we want directed things. There are several ways to do directed things. None of this is comprehensive. It's just me yapping. One of them is with electrically powered systems. What this means is that there's going to be a battery that's charging probably capacitors, which then go to an emitter. Pew. This is USA has these. Everyone has these. They've been in development for many years. Things like high power microwave beams. There's overlap between this and laser technology. So on this, if you look, this is one of our U.S. Cruise missiles. We have cruise missiles right now that have the ability to shoot high power microwave beams, which will fry the insides of things like drones, things like anti-missile missiles, maybe. I don't know. These things, they claim 100 shots, at least. I assume that it's actually close to 100, in that if they could easily do 1,000 shots, I see no reason why they wouldn't say they do 1,000 shots. This is kind of the problem with electrically driven systems. The density of energy is quite low. You might wonder, of course, 100 shots is a lot, right? If we're just putting something on a Humvee, do we really need 100 shots? Can we not just make it smaller and then have like 10 shots and then be able to destroy 10 drones? Um, like yes, you could, but the problem is the battery isn't the entire extra volume. There is a significant like fixed volume cost in these systems because the strength and therefore also things like the effective range of the beam are heavily determined by how much instantaneous energy there is. So you want like instantaneous high voltage, and anything that stores a lot of energy is going to have any battery or such thing is going to have a hard time producing that outright. So usually you'll need batteries to charge banks of capacitors, but these banks of capacitors you see are fixed. They're a fixed volume cost because even if you have a tiny battery, you'll still need to charge all these capacitors if you want the same high high voltage. So that's iffy. Now the real fun way to do things, okay, people? The real fun way to do things is with explosives. Woo! That's right. There are explosive. There are many ways to use the power of explosives because explosives, by their nature, are very instantaneously powerful, and you can convert that instantaneous explosive energy into instantaneous strong magnetic field to blast drones out of the sky. Now, the way we do this, of course, we'll probably be using chemical weapons, right? I mean, chemical energy from chemical explosions, as opposed to nuclear energy, which is energy from nuclear explosions. Nuclear energy is a lot more dense than chemical energy, but it has a lot of like annoying side effects. So we don't want to deal with that. So, chemical energy, right? There are many ways to do this. The most common is like explosive driven, like flux magnetic field generation. It's needless to get into the specifics. The point is mostly that if you have metal, you have current, you have a magnetic field going through it, explode something so that the metal ring squishes in really fast, and then you get amplified magnetic field in a smaller area, which lets you blast things. This gets quite small. They are one-off, of course. There is no like preserving parts in your thing that you just exploded. But there are some interesting things we can do with this, right? So for example, I mean, first of all, if you just have these, you could even just have them be man portable, right? I mean, soldiers already carry like grenade launchers. Why not just have them carry a launcher that launches like cans of soup, but it's like these things, and then pew, electromagnetic drone destruction. Or here's another fun one. Look, you see this? This is the trophy active protection system, I think. The way it goes is there's this little turret thing. That's what they're referring to as the launcher, I believe. This little turret thing, it's an arm. It's holding a plate. This plate is several layers, but the point is that it's being gripped by the arm, and there's metal on top, and then here there's explosive. The explosive will explode and then shove the metal, and the metal will go hit something. And there's like geometry and stuff. It'll shape the metal, kind of like a shaped charge. But anyway, that's the point. And then radar for automatic targeting. Crew shield just because things are exploding, right? And if some guy's up here, he would be sad if something exploded and then he got hit by the explode. Anyway, point is though, imagine this, but imagine we just, don't have these explosive plates, or we can have them, but then, here's an autoloader. It's a box full of these plates for reloading. Imagine if we had two boxes. Imagine if we just stick another box here, and this box has little soup cans, but the soup cans, each soup can is actually a directed EMP that's driven by explosives, and then pew, you blast a drone, and then you reload, and then pew, you blast another drone. It's the male fantasy, that right there. Here's another fun thing. I believe this is like 2016, a patent. Some guy in the U.S. Patented this. It's an idea for a similar device. This uses, I want to say, ferroelectric generation instead of flux, but the point is the same. You're gonna shoot a blank. The gases from the blank will go through here. They will hit things, push things, such that you get the ferroelectric power out of some material, and then that gives you a burst of energy to go pew. This is less powerful than using flux. Like the maximums that are achieved in terms of like total power are quite low. Of course, you can still get quite high instantaneous power, but then again, this is intended to be man portable, so there's that. I assume it's single shot. I don't know. Anyway, just musings, random musings. Thank you for coming. Love you. Bye.